Let's turn mute off. Hi, Danville. Alan Shields here, Chief of Police, and we are 10-8 and in service, which means we are here to make people's lives better by safeguarding the lives, rights, and property of everyone we serve. We've actually got a pretty good show today. If you missed it last night, I gave an update to our town council, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to break that update into about 3 sections. And what's great about the update is it's kind of a health check for how your police department and you, the community, are doing when it comes to public safety for the first 6 months of the year. And what I do is I compare the first 6 months of this year with previous years and talk about what is going on. We're also going to talk about some of the crime and some of the traffic that's been happening here in town. But as always, I want you to be prepared. So I really want you to download this FEMA guide. Go to the link in the description, download it, and review it with your family. It's a good way to stay engaged and prepared should something happen. Also, if you want to know what is happening, go to our community warning system page on the sheriff's office website. And in there, you can register for community warning system alerts, and you can download and review the wildfire preparedness and evacuation guide. We've gone over that guide before, but it talks about what you can do to prepare your home, prepare your family, go bags, stay connected, all of that. The community warning system, if there's an earthquake, a hillside fire or whatever, that's one of the main communication methods that we're going to use, along with Nixle. If you haven't signed up for Nixle, I would say go ahead and do that when you get done. There is information in the description, but it's a simple text message. You just send your zip code to 888-777 on a text message. So just like you're text messaging a friend, in the to box, instead of putting the phone number, you put 888-777. And then in the description box or the narrative box, you just put your zip code or several zip codes. This is a live show. The whole reason we have this show is so that we can be connected with all of you. So if you have a question and you'd like me to answer it, I would be happy to answer it live on air if I can. If I can, I'll answer it after the show. Just go ahead and put it in the chat. And if we want to keep this show going, it's about viewership and attendance. So share this with your friends. Make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. Hit the like button, hit the little thumbs up or whatever to say that, hey, you're on board, but make sure that you're sharing this with your friends. All right, so let's look at crime in town. If you always want to check it yourself, communitycrimeapp.com is how you can check it. There you can set up alerts that go direct to your email, and you can also look at the Megan's Law or the Sexual Offender Registry. September 26th to October 2nd. So we did have a bit of crime, and a lot of it is attributable to some catalytic converter thefts. We had 6 total thefts, no violent crimes, no burglaries, no vehicle thefts. We did have 2 injury collisions, 1 property collisions, and let's get going. So September 26th, we had a catalytic converter theft on Diablo Road, and it was a 2005 Honda Accord. I'm going to start letting you know the vehicle descriptions so that you can be aware of what are the prevalent cars that people are targeting. On the 26th, we had credit cards that were stolen from a vehicle on the 400 block of San Ramon Valley Boulevard, and they were later used locally. On the 30th, we had another catalytic converter theft from a vehicle on Mustang Drive, and that was a 2006 Toyota Prius. On the 30th, we had a theft of a pool pump from the pool supply store on San Ramon Valley Boulevard during business hours. So this is not a burglary where they broke in during after hours. This is something where the business was open and someone ran off with the pool pump. On the 1st, we had another theft of a catalytic converter, so that's 3 for the week. So that represents half of our total crime for this week. Turn the volume down here. So half of our total crime for the week. And that was on a 2007 Toyota Prius over on Camino Ramon, over by the Rose Garden Shopping Center. On the 2nd, we had a theft of a purse from Costco while the victim was loading their car. In this case, it was actually kudos to our victim and kudos to our officers just doing good old-fashioned police work and then passing it off to our detectives. The officers went and took the initial information. Our detectives ran with that case. They were both able to determine 2 suspects. They wrote warrants for their arrests, and there's warrants for both suspects in this case. So we're continuing to work that case and follow leads on that. All right, on to traffic. So traffic, September 26th to October 2nd, three total reported collisions. On the 26th, we had an injury collision on Falcon Street. That's out east towards Diablo Vista Park. On the 1st, we had a non-injury collision at Crow Canyon and Camino Tas. And then we had, on October 2nd, we had an injury collision on El Rio Road. That's off of El Pintado, right there near the freeway. All right, so with catalytic converters, what can we do? In the update that I gave council, I'll describe an incident where we worked to solve and prevent catalytic converter thefts. But this public safety thing, it's a hand in hand, it's a cooperative effort. And we talk about this on the show. We have a shared responsibility. Right? I don't have any more responsibility to keep the town safe than every single one of you. What we tell the folks wishing to do bad things here in Danville is we say it's not the 30 cops and the 25 volunteers and the 8 reserve officers and all of our professional staff. It's not a limited group of 60 to 90 people keeping Danville safe. You have to worry about the 45,000 people that live here, because everyone, young and old, report crime to the police. The difference is your obligation is to see, report. Our obligation is to act. We are the people that you pay full time to do that. We live in a great area. And the reason I say it's great is because I've seen kids as young as 13, 14 years old call 911 because they're witnessing crime as it's taking place. And they do a very good job of preventing crime when they report it. Sorry about that. So what can you do? Catalytic converter theft. This may be something that you don't know about, but I want to show you first how quickly this can actually take place. So here's a short video, and I want to thank the news, and I'll put them in the chat. But this is from the news. It's fair use. It's for educational purposes only. But I do want to show what a catalytic converter theft looks like. It used to be that we'd see it a lot with the trucks and the SUVs because it was easy to slide under. What we're seeing nowadays is we're actually seeing them come with jacks, jacking up the car, getting under there and cutting it off. But let's see what it looks like here. So in this particular case, you can see there's people working in tandem. Good thing he chocks the rear tire. So he puts something under the rear tire to keep it from rolling back, because we've seen catastrophes, not here locally, but around, where people jack up a car, it rolls back and it falls on the person. And that's not good. So you can see one person is jacking up. A couple of different people have what are called sawzalls. That's the red device with a long blade on it. Usually you see it in construction where people will use it to cut through things like 2x4s, metal, nails, all of that kind of stuff. So they'll get under there, they'll work together to get it. And you can see that it does take a little bit of time, but what they're doing is they're trying to cut off 2 sections of pipe. Sometimes they'll use, it looks like one of them has a long bit on a drill driver, and what he's doing is he's actually trying to work off 3 of the bolts that hold it on one end while the other person's cutting it off on the other. They grab the catalytic converter, they grab their jack and their tools, and off they go with your catalytic converter, and they're off selling it for a fair amount of money. And then you're going to be out anywhere from $1,500 to $3,200 to repair that. So I'll cover what we're doing, but what can you do? And this is the tricky part. So knowing that the cost to fix and repair that can be anywhere from $1,500 to $3,200, then the time that your car is away and that it takes to get it fixed can be really frustrating. And I know that we live in a world where we shouldn't have to do any of these things. People simply should not steal from one another. But this is the crime. This is the hot crime that's happening right now. One of the things you can do, and I'm not recommending anyone in particular, but I'm just showing this as an example. This is what's called a catalytic converter shield. So your catalytic converter is part of your exhaust system. It sits underneath the car, and it's typically exposed, and it's exposed because it gets very hot, and most of your exhaust system tends to be exposed underneath the car. What this is, it's a shield that is bolted onto the bottom. It uses theft-resistant bolts, so bolts that require a certain head in order to bolt it on. And it's a plate that obstructs, so they can't just simply unbolt or cut through your catalytic converter pipe. Because what they're doing is they're taking the device, the catalytic converter, and on either side, and they're cutting the pipes at either end, and that just frees that catalytic converter. Well, when you then want to go replace it, you now have to, or your shop has to replace a length of pipe on one side, a length of pipe on the other, and the catalytic converter. So there's some labor costs. There's also some parts costs, and it's very, very frustrating. So that's one thing you can do. The other thing we recommend is just park your car, if you can, park it in the garage, park it in well-lit areas, park it where there's motion lights, some type of security, a camera. Because even if we don't stop them, maybe the footage from that camera will help us catch them. And we have caught people like that. We've even gone so far when this was prevalent before where someone cut their finger while they were cutting through the pipe. And we took DNA from the ground from the blood stain that was on the ground, and we were able to identify the person that had committed that crime. So that's what you can do. In the update that I'll give you next from that I presented to council, I've got a section specific on crime and catalytic converters. So I'll cover one of the things that we do to help prevent or stop catalytic converter theft. So our update to the council, those are, we do those quarterly. You can always download those right from our website. It's on our Chief's message page, and it's just a simple book. This one's about 12 pages long, and it is the website link is right there on screen. But it's on my Chief's page. You can find previous copies on there as well, so you can track us over time. Let's get into the crime, though. So let's look at, so this is only January through June. So before I throw that up again, so this is January through June. So this is our mid-year checkup. We want to see how we're doing. All of us here in the police department, we track crime week by week and month by month. And then when we hit 6 months, we do a look back so that we can identify if there are any trends that we need to pay attention to. And so this is what this is. So this is simply a 6 month. So if you look, we start at 2018, we go through 2022. And we have been, and if you were to extend this back, if I were to pick a larger window and say, let's do a 7-year, 8-year look back, we have been on a decreasing trend for that period of time. Certainly 2020, 2021, due to the pandemic, those are anomaly years where crime was exceedingly low. And in 2022, we increased slightly from our 2021 totals. So we went from 105, which is remarkably low, to 119 total Part 1 crimes. On the month by month, if you look, so this is Part 1 crime month by month. So this goes January through June, and it lists the Part 1 crimes. That's stolen vehicles, thefts, burglaries, assaults, and those are felony assaults. So those are not simply a pushing, shoving match, but that's something that will require stitches, or when someone loses consciousness, or the assault is likely to produce great bodily injury or death. Robberies, rapes, and homicides. So the interesting thing to note, there's two things that jump out at you here. The first one is January was a horrible month for crime. We had a lot of crime. If you look, the two that stick out are really going to be the thefts and the burglaries. The thefts, 19, were the highest, but the burglaries, look at that, 9 burglaries. We only had 2 for every other month except for June, where we had 1. And if you think back to all of last year, we only had 26 burglaries. So we had 9 in the first month of the year. I have to tell you, when I saw that number at the beginning of the year, I was like, oh, please don't let this trend continue. Thankfully, that did not continue, and we saw quite a few less. And a lot of those burglaries are also, they're open garage door. They're preventable burglaries. They're not planned burglaries. Some of them are, but many of them, when we looked at the details, were not. Okay, here's where we get into catalytic converters. Catalytic converters. So of all these crimes of the, what did we say? There was 119. So of the 119 crimes, catalytic converter theft represented 27% of all of our Part 1 crime. That is an incredible number. Incredible. So when you think about how our thefts increased from 105 to 119, that is less than a 27%. So if we had no catalytic converter thefts in town, we would be far below last year. But 27% is a huge number. And that's why we're trying to appeal to you to help us prevent and solve these catalytic converter thefts. And what do? We do a little bit of technology, a little bit of old style police work. And frankly, the men and women who work here are working really, really hard to work at preventing this. And we've got a pretty good example. Back on September 11th, we actually had people that were chased away as they were breaking into a car. So neighbors, kudos. This is all you, Danville. This is why Danville's so great. We saw neighbors that saw someone or a group breaking into a car. They called us. We get out there. The suspect car flees. Then we use the camera system that is all throughout town to identify that specific vehicle. Now, what we did was we put it in as a plate, known to be a thief in Danville. And so that way, if it were to come back into town, we would see it, and we would work to curb any criminal activity from that vehicle. The very next night they come into town, Our officers stop it. The pair happen to be on probation. We end up arresting them for probation violations. And in the trunk, we find the picture in the upper right and the picture in the upper left. And the picture on the left, the top left, that is what a catalytic converter looks like. So that is a type of device that they're after, and they cut both sides. So you just saw the video of the jack, the Sawzall, the blades. Now, you stopped this car knowing that these people had committed crime here in town. They were chased away. And now you see a jack, you see half a dozen saw blades, you see bolt cutters, and the red tool that kind of looks like a drill in the lower left. That's actually a Sawzall that you use to cut through the pipe. Now, these people certainly didn't say, yes, we had come into town to steal a bunch of catalytic converters, right? Like that's not typically an admission you make. But we believe, based on the fact that they were chased away from stealing from a car the night before and then coming to town with the I Steal catalytic converter starter kit, that's clearly what they were here to do. And so kudos to the people that were the eyewitnesses that were able to describe the car and called the cops so that we could scare them away from the first night. And then, frankly, kudos to all of you for accepting technology, to your town council for implementing that technology, and for your town manager being so fiscally responsible that he can fund that technology and keep it going for years and years and years. And I think when we looked at that chart from our trend, why it's sloping down so much is frankly the huge kudos to all of you. You, everyone in Danville, is what makes Danville a safer place. So I'm going to check the chat and see if we have any questions. Brian McDonald, perfect. That is the Nixle website. That is exactly what we're looking for. So interesting. If you go to, so I usually pitch the send a text message to 888-777. If you go to the Nixle website, you can actually tailor it, because maybe you don't want to know that the road is closed because there's a tree down, power lines down, accident. But you just want to know when the flood is coming, when the hillside is flooding and going through houses. You want to know only the major. You can actually tailor the types of alerts that you get. So you can say, you know what, email me the lower alerts, but the real critical ones, send those directly to my phone. So Brian, I appreciate you putting that in there. So Kevin says, I stopped by Muffler Shop in Walnut Creek last week to pick up a part. He had 4 Toyota Priuses lined up for new catalytic converters due to theft. No parts absolve until December for manufacture. So here's the interesting part. 2 weeks ago when we covered catalytic converters, because remember last week we knocked one out of the park. We didn't have any thefts. 2 weeks ago when I covered it, we actually had all 9 catalytic converter thefts that we had over, I think, a 2-week period of time. Every single one of them was a Toyota Prius. Every single one. So I'm trying to go through the chat here. So Allison says, we installed the catalytic converter protective grill on our son's Prius last week after we heard a neighbor got theirs stolen a couple of weeks ago. Allison, maybe throw it in the chat, because I have a Toyota Tundra and we're going to order those shields. And for the Prius, what I've noticed online is I've seen them anywhere from like $120 to $180. Unfortunately for the Tundra, they're like $500 or so, but they looked like they were pretty easy to install. So I'm kind of curious if you installed it yourself or you had someone else do it, and what your experience was. So Helena says, what can we do to prevent sideshows from happening in our town again? So Helena, the only thing that I remember that was close to a sideshow was up at Sycamore Park. And certainly there was illegal activity per the vehicle code. It sounded like there were people that were revving their engines, maybe doing some burnouts or peel outs, but it wasn't a sideshow per se. If you go on to YouTube and just YouTube sideshow, you can see that they're quite a bit more massive, a lot more lawlessness. When we went to that one, we actually broke it up and we sent them on their way. And what it looked like, it was a lot of local kids, because it was the week before school was getting back in, and it seemed like it was a lot of local kids. If it isn't that, if you would please do me a favor, direct message me or throw it right in the chat and let me know which day you're talking about. And that way I can do some research on it and make sure that we're attacking the problem appropriately. Larry, so Larry's one of our Citizens Academy folks, and we actually had a pretty good experience this weekend. Last weekend, was when we did a tour of the coroner's office, and then we took the participants out to the range to show them the different tools that we use, and then we do a force scenario where we use like BB guns, and our citizens, our residents, are the police officers, and then we are the people that they have to either admonish on a car stop or go check on and do a welfare check on. And it gets to be a pretty interesting experience. And what we're trying to do is maybe show them some of the types of calls that we may respond to, and then get their feedback. We want to know, how is it that they want how do you want your police to respond in these different scenarios? All right, Kevin, thanks for fixing the typo. I should be able to read through that. I shouldn't stumble so much when I'm reading over one word. Allison said it was $512 at the Toyota dealer in Walnut Creek. Great. So that's not a bad investment. I've known some people that have had multiple catalytic converters stolen. I've got a friend down in Los Angeles that has had that happen to him twice. Can you inscribe your car VIN number on your converter? So you can put your VIN number on your converter. You can, and this goes back to just general property. If your property is unserialized, so like my iPad that's in front of me that I use for this, it has a serial number, it has identification markings on it. Most of the electronic equipment in my office has serial numbers on it. And so what we recommend is, when it comes to property like that, I just take pictures of it. So I take my phone, like my bicycle, I get a new bike, I snap a picture of the serial number. I get a new computer, I snap a picture. So I know I can always go back and I can find that picture, so that should it get stolen, I can report it. It also provides law enforcement with a way to backtrack it the other way. So even if you don't remember it, if we find it, we can go through Apple, we can go through Roadcast or Road for my electronic equipment here. We can try to backtrack it that way. It is easier if it's already in the system, because then we run it out and it comes back, hey, Alan Shields, that's his cell phone. That makes it much easier for us. When it comes to catalytic converters, imagine this. If an officer pulls over a car and they've got 3 catalytic converters sitting in the back of the pickup truck, but no way to identify them. Like we can't just because you have something that may be stolen back there, we can't just take away someone's rights and take them. So we have to have at least a level of probable cause proof that that is stolen and that person knows that property to be stolen. And so if we can link it back by way of your VIN number, so if you've inscribed your VIN number on there, or had a shop inscribe your VIN number on there, then we can return it. But again, if we're going to spend time and effort, not that I don't like catching people doing wrong, but we want to spend time and effort in the prevention side. And so that's why you get officers out doing proactive stops, looking at certain times of the day and night on when these crimes are occurring, and seeing if we can't stop them from happening. Let's see, we got some more here. So that was, Helena says, it was that. I was only seeing what was posted on Nextdoor about it. Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Helena. And if you have more questions about Helena, you can always hit me up direct. I've got some video on it, and we can kind of discuss the differences as well. Tom says, Walnut Creek installed a plate over my converter for $600 with installation last year. That sounds pretty reasonable. I mean, I'm seeing anywhere from $120 to $500 for the plate itself. So to install it would be, that seems pretty reasonable. I personally overestimate my handiness sometimes, and so I tend to try to do it myself. So if I do it, I'll let all of you know how that worked out. So Debbie says, I wish we could find where they are selling them. What exactly is in it that they want? Debbie, we covered this in one of the previous shows, but it's the precious metals, and I am not an expert on the metals that make up catalytic converters, so I can't list palladium and all the other metals, but there are metals in there that have gone up so high in price that on the secondary market, they're very, very expensive. The governor did sign a bill into law that may be able to help us as far as people having to show more identification, proof of where these catalytic converters are coming from when they're selling them. But there are, agencies that have recyclers in their area. They do work with those recyclers to try to determine if the sales are legitimate. We don't have them in Danville. If we get information either through an arrest on where someone is selling them, then we do track that back and we work with those local agencies. So Debbie, that's an excellent investigative technique, and it's one that we use throughout the Bay Area. All right, it looks like that is all the questions. If you're watching this after the fact, throw a question in there. I do check it for about a day to see if there's any other questions. But the best way is, if you miss us after the live show, just email me direct and say, hey, I saw this and had a question. And so Nathan says, what are you doing about the sideshows around town? Thank you for putting the car out on Sycamore. So it looks like we do work. So if we do notice a sideshow, we'll go and respond and break it up. But I haven't seen anything that warrants the designation of sideshow yet. Helena says, this is really great. Thank you for hosting this session, and thank you for everything that you do to keep DPD and our community safe. Helena, I appreciate it. I mean, it's through your support that we keep these programs going, and we know that we do it better together with the support of the community. So I appreciate you tuning in and watching this and providing some of your feedback. As always, we want you to go to the Community Warning System website on the Sheriff's site, download the Wildfire Preparedness Guide, sign up for those alerts. That's super important. And then download the FEMA All Hazards Checklist. I just happen to have the one up here for power outage. So it shows you how to be prepared in case of a power outage. And there's all different kinds in there. I mean, they even go through nuclear disaster, hurricanes, which hopefully we don't have here. But some of the advice that you can glean from a lot of those sections are really good. And it's just good to go over and make sure that you're well prepared. All right, so with that, we're 10:10, which means we're off duty, but we're always 10:8 in service to all of you. Have a good day, Danville. Bye-bye.